Right. So the one that's active is the link at the bottom, Yellowstone supervolcano, a possible disaster. Anything's possible, I guess. And okay.
आप भी ब्लैक बेल्ट वाली घड़ी पहनते हो। ये घड़ी आपने नहीं पहनी चाहिए क्योंकि ब्लैक कलर एक रिजेक्शन का कलर है।
Volcanoes are some of the most awe-inspiring natural phenomenons that Earth creates. Every once in a while, one rips open, spewing ash, rocks, and lava into the atmosphere. But while volcanoes are fun to watch from afar, they can also be very destructive. None more so than the legendary supervolcano that lies underneath Yellowstone National Park. So what if the Yellowstone supervolcano erupts today? Hello, and welcome to What If Geography, where we try and answer the great geographic what if questions of the world. I'm your host, Jeff Gibson, and today we're going to talk about the supervolcano, specifically the one underneath the Yellowstone National Park. And while it's not likely to erupt anytime soon, eventually it will need to let off a little steam, and when it does, it could be a big mess. But before we get into today's episode, this is just a reminder to follow the What If Geography podcast if you are interested in deeper dives on my subjects. The podcast now has its own channel, and you can find it right here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. A supervolcano is exactly what it sounds like, a volcano that is many times larger than a traditional volcano. More specifically, it is a volcano that has a volcanic explosivity index of 8, which is the highest ranking possible. A volcano with an explosivity index of 4 or less emits less than 1 cubic kilometer of magma. From there, it ramps up. At an index of 5, a volcano will emit more than 1 cubic kilometer of magma. A 6 will emit more than 10 cubic kilometers. A 7, more than 100 cubic kilometers. And an 8 will emit more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of magma, as well as an incredible amount of ash into the atmosphere. To put this in perspective, the Mount St. Helens eruption in 1980 and the Icelandic volcano eruption in 2010 were both rated at an index of 4. That same Icelandic volcano, despite being relatively low on the index, wreaked havoc on the world and managed to disrupt basically all air travel from North America to Europe. Both of these volcanoes caused enough havoc to be worthy for the history books, but neither come close to what a supervolcano would do, let alone the Yellowstone supervolcano. The Yellowstone supervolcano will be truly massive whenever it does have a full eruption. When Yellowstone last erupted about 2.1 million years ago, it managed to spew 2,500 cubic kilometers of magma from within the Earth, and enough ash to cover most of the continental United States. Mount St. Helens, by contrast, managed a relatively small 0.25 cubic kilometers of magma. The Yellowstone eruption was approximately 10,000 times larger than the Mount St. Helens eruption. But while the Yellowstone supervolcano is large, it isn't the only supervolcano in the world. 3 others exist within the western half of the United States. 6 are nestled within the Andes Mountains on the border of Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia, another on the Indonesian island of Sumatra, and the final within New Zealand, just south of Auckland. All told, if all of these supervolcanoes exploded at the same time, life on the planet would be in very dire straits. The largest of these, the supervolcano in Indonesia, last erupted about 75,000 years ago and let loose approximately 13,000 cubic kilometers of magma. It's worth noting that the Indonesian eruption caused a 10-year global winter event and is theorized to have nearly wiped out the budding human population at the time. Today, the area around the Yellowstone supervolcano is relatively crowded, and its impact would be felt far and wide if it ever erupted. In addition to the many cities and towns in the general area, humans have grown to more than 8 billion people since the last eruption. But before we get into the impacts of a supervolcano eruption, if you're enjoying this video, now would be a great time to subscribe. More fun What If Geography videos are just a single click away. Before we dive into what an actual supervolcano eruption would do, it's probably important to clear up some misconceptions around the event. Over the last couple decades, the idea of the Yellowstone supervolcano erupting has been mythologized and aggrandized. So let's clear up some stuff first. A Yellowstone supervolcano eruption would likely not cause an Armageddon-level event. According to the US Geological Survey, the next time the region erupts, it's most likely going to be a relatively small lava flow event that releases the volcanic pressure without the theatrics of a volcanic explosion. There's always the possibility of a super eruption, which would have global implications, but that seems to be an incredibly unlikely scenario. Additionally, Yellowstone is not overdue for a super eruption. While there are many statistics out there trying to show that the continent is overdue, they are based on only two variables. One super eruption 2.1 million years ago, and another 640,000 years ago. No matter how you slice it, trying to derive a pattern from two events is mathematically impossible. We simply don't have enough information. And again, if an eruption does happen, it would likely be something much more benign. Finally, the region as a whole is not giving any hints that a super eruption is imminent. There is no evidence that the magma chamber underneath Yellowstone is growing. Yellowstone is not rapidly rising as some like to think, according to the USGS monitoring. And the earthquakes that have occurred over the last few years have not indicated that they're anything more than just that. Simple earthquakes in an otherwise geologically complicated area. All this is to say, we don't actually have to worry about a super eruption happening within Yellowstone, but it is fun to think about. If a super eruption did occur, it would be a pivotal moment for the human race. But luckily, there would probably be plenty of obvious signs leading up to that moment. For one, there would likely be weeks to months of very intense seismic activity across the entire region, as the volcano will need to break down the rocks above the magma before it could actually explode. But after that, the fireworks would really begin. But it still won't be that catastrophic, at least not in the way you might be thinking. Magma and lava spewing everywhere. All told, it's estimated that the area of magma exposure would be contained to around 40 square kilometers. That's a huge volcanic eruption to be sure, but again, not really impactful enough to cause anyone outside of the immediate area to be in any danger of falling into a lava pit. What would be catastrophic, however, would be the ash cloud. With a super eruption, most areas of the United States would receive at least some ash falling on them, but the areas around the park would be hit the hardest. It's estimated that the states of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado would be inundated by upwards of 3 feet of ash. This would likely include the major metropolitan areas of Denver, Salt Lake City, and Boise, and smaller cities such as Billings, Cheyenne, and Missoula. And while ash might not seem like that big of a deal, that much ash is absolutely capable of killing humans, animals, and plant life. It's also very likely to crush buildings and vehicles under the weight of it. Ash is, after all, just small bits of rock and glass. Once you get enough of it together, it becomes quite heavy. Even a single inch of ash, which is what Minneapolis, Chicago, Kansas City, Phoenix, Los Angeles, and San Francisco can likely expect, can clog roadways and plumbing and cause serious respiratory issues for people. At the very least, air travel would absolutely be halted throughout the entire continent. But while the human impacts would be huge, it's probably the global impact on the climate that would have the biggest ramifications.
Digestive problems making life difficult?
I think it is over.
Oh, I think it's over. Yeah, thank you. So, let's go to the next slide. There's the Ring of Fire. Have you heard of the Ring of Fire before?
Yeah.
Yes,
No.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, there it is. And let's go to the next slide. And reading this now, let's see. Sartak, would you like to read this, please?
Ma'am, should I read?
Yes, ma'am. Most volcanoes occur along diverging plate boundaries pull apart.
Mm-hmm.
Lava pours out of cracks in the ocean floor and subduction zones of convergent boundaries push together. Crust melts and forms magma that rises back to the surface.
So I personally live on the Pacific Ocean in a subduction zone, and Mount St. Helens is nearby. It's just something that we live with. And if there was a subduction earthquake, chances are that would be the end of our lives because of a tsunami. So we are living on the active part of the earth, and we just know that we live in a beautiful area, but it's a bit dangerous. You never know when a surprise can happen. Let's go to the next. An exception is, let me see. Unati, can you read that, please?
Yes, ma'am. An expansion
is hotspots far from the boundaries of continental or oceanic plates.
And you'll notice in this photo, or this drawing, excuse me, is the Hawaiian Islands. So they're an exception. They're very active, but they're not on the boundaries of tectonic plates. So let's go to the next slide. And Manav, can you read the question, please?
Manav, are you there?
Yeah, he just showed up.
Are volcano constructive
Constructive.
or a destructive force?
Yeah, are they? So before we go to the next slide, how many of you think they're constructive? Constructive means building. How many of you think they're destructive, wrecking everything? Or how many of you think they're both?
They are destructive.
Destructive.
They are destructive. We've learned that. Anybody else got an idea that they want to share?
It may be constructive. I don't know, but most of the yes goes to destructive because we have heard about destructive volcanoes which can disturb us, which is disturbing our city.
Exactly. Mostly that's what we hear. Let's go to the next slide and give you a chance to think about it maybe a different way. And let's go to Shivansh. Can you read this, please?
Yes, ma'am. Constitutive force. Volcano add new rocks to existing land and for new island.
So they can construct or they can build new land. And so let's go to the next slide. Maitri, can you read that, please?
Yes, ma'am. If a volcano was about to erupt and put your city in danger, you would be forced to evacuate. That means you would have to leave quickly for your own safety. What belongings might you feel were the most important to bring away with you?
So I would love it if you could talk to me about that. What would you bring with you if you were forced to leave your home?
I would take my water and
would be making sure that my family members are okay. And then
So think about it. Nice. So I want you to really put in your mind, now you don't have to say it out loud, but you have 10 minutes to leave your home. The volcano is coming. And what would you take with you?
Bottle of water. How much we can take with us?
Yeah.
Food to eat, as because we will have much more time to reach more far from the volcano, as volcano erupt almost I think 1 kilometer. Is it?
I'm not sure how many kilometers, but they would take you to a safe spot with lots of other people. So you might, if your school was a safe spot, they'd fill the gymnasium, they'd fill the classrooms with refugees from the volcano. Sartak, what would you bring with you?
And I will take the water and some food.
Food and water. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Because this actually happened on November 11th. And so, Shivansh, would you like to read this?
Yes, ma'am. On November 11, 2023, Iceland declared a state of emergency and forced people to
Evacuate, good.
Evacuate their homes in the small town to
Grindavik. That's an Icelandic name of a town called Grindavik.
in southwest Iceland. A wave of nearly 800 earthquakes occurred. In one 24-hour period, scientists declared
Detected, like a
magma
detective that they found.
detected magma cooling under its coastal fishing village. People were giving only 10 minutes to feather their belonging and level.
And leave. So there were 3,700 people, and the emergency workers came to their town at 11 o'clock at night, knocked on the door, and said the government has decided that there's magma pooling underneath your town there in Iceland, and you have 10 minutes to leave. So they said to you, we're going to take you to a safe spot where there is food, where there is water, where there are beds, but you have to decide what you're going to take and what you're going to leave. And what do you think was the saddest thing they had to leave? Can anybody guess?
Their
Maybe
houses.
their money.
Their money? That could be. That's a good point. Anybody else got
Their
another guess?
houses.
Something that would break their heart?
The living area which they had a very good memories.
Yeah, the area. Something,
Their
okay.
houses and their properties.
Their house and their, oh yeah, they built this house and the property their whole life, their wonderful town. What about their pets?
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's tough. Yeah, they had to leave their pets behind, and that would
but
make
they
them
can
cry.
even take with them, no?
No, they couldn't take their pets. But now the next slide, we're going to find out something quite wonderful. Let's look at the next slide. So there's Iceland. Some of us have studied Iceland here together. It's up in the North Atlantic Ocean where two plates meet. And it's a pulling apart kind of volcanoes that happen there. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, who would like to read that?
I
Oh, Anati,
My
can you
ma'am.
read this? It'll be Anati's turn this time.
November 22, 2023. After 11 days of worry, hundreds of pets have been rescued from Iceland's town of Grindavik after they were separated from their owners over threats of an almost certain upcoming volcano eruption. Charities have taken part in a number of rescue efforts in a bid to save animals in the town, with resources returning to look for animals. Cats, dogs, hamsters, and even hens were at the center of rescue efforts after many were left behind following evacuation
Evacuation.
evacuation orders which
Evacuation.
gave evacuation
Not Cation. Asian. Evacuation. Yes.
orders which gave residents minutes to leave. Over 4,000 people were evacuated.
Evacuated.
Charities and other organizations stepped in to save the day as many renewals took place.
And when you have a reunion, that's when you get back together. And so here is a moment that pet owner reunited with their pet. And let's go ahead, and that's a little video here that we'll end with today. Kind of a heartwarming video because we love our pets, don't we?
This one?
Yeah.
Should I play this?
Please, yes.
Ma'am, it would be very hard for the cat, the people which is keeping kettles.
It would be very
Because
hard.
if the volcano eruption is done there, so we can't even help
Raj
those
Spencer का balance
kettles which
advantage
are
fund,
there.
जहाँ debt और equity के balance के साथ
I
आप
agree.
We are helpless to
financial और
help them.
behavioral models का
Hard to hear.
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
So how long have you been away from him? 11 days. Oh, hello. Even the animals, they get depressed when they are lost.
That's so true. Can you pause the video for a minute?
Yes.
The thing that happened in Grindavik was that the earth started splitting apart. These are called fissures. Out of the places where, remember, as the magma comes up, it has to get rid of the rock that's on the surface. So the way that happens is the earth splits apart. Gases come up through those fissures, and the gases themselves are quite poisonous. It smells like rotten eggs, the smell of sulfur. So many of the houses have already been damaged, or some maybe even destroyed by the fact that the earth itself split apart. So they have not been able to go back to their homes at this point. They're still in maybe spread out over Iceland in safe places. Can we continue now with the video?
Yes.
I've been really watching the news on this one. Little kitties, so sad. But
So how long have you been away from him? 11 days. Oh, hello. It must have been the worst 11 days.
Guys, क्या आप ऑप्शंस ट्रेडिंग करते हो?
well, there you go.
डर लगता है अगर
Reunited with their beloved pets. And yeah, any thoughts on that?
Ma'am, first of all, how did the animals survive then? Because you mentioned there's a lot of poisonous gases that comes out of the fissures.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, Maitri, the gases were mostly on the roadway. And although I did see some houses that were tilted, so it did not affect all of the houses. The part that was interesting to me was the rescue workers.
Your video stopped.
And that's good for the video to stop. It's done. But the rescue workers themselves risked their lives and went back and got the pets and brought them to pet hotels where they were kept in cages and kept safe. Remember that the people were safe, but some of the places that they stayed were like hotels that would not allow animals to come. Animals were not allowed. And so the pets were in their own kind of like a pet hotel until they got settled. But yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, but I think people should adjust with those things. If hotel is available there and the animals need help, so for almost the work is done by the people which are like covering up the gaps, the fissures after the volcanic eruption, whatever is going on there. So they can adjust for just for 2 weeks at least.
Yeah, they were gone for 2 weeks, but I think they've been gone since, what did it say? The 11th of November. So they've been almost out of their town for a month now. But you have to remember the magma is pooled underneath their town. So they do not know when that eruption will take place. It could take place tomorrow. It could take place in a couple of months, but they feel the eruption is near and it isn't safe to go back. So get all the living creatures out, the people, the animals, but you'd have to leave all your photos behind. You'd have to leave your house behind and your toys and just the things that you worked your whole life for. It's very sad. But good that they have the pets, and soon people will get apartments or different places to live. The government will help them with that.
Yeah.
I believe.
They'll be rehabilitated.
Yeah, and when something bad happens, one thing that always makes me feel good is that there are charities and workers, the helpers will step in, and there's so many people that have good hearts in this world that are there for people when at hard times, and the helpers are the ones we look at because they are the heroes. People risking their lives to save other people's
like during the pandemic, we have observed thousands of people they work.
Yeah. There's goodness in people. So, well, I know it's late for you. Thank you for joining me. Please think about talking with Sir or
Yes.
being able to put together a video about your school. I'd love to learn more about it.
Okay.
Maybe you can send him some videos or some pictures in your written words, because I think we've done a lot of reading, but we have not done a lot of writing. So if you have some good ideas that I could learn about your school, put together something and help Sir, and he'll teach me about your school.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
sound good?
Yes, ma'am.
We would love
Okay.
that. Yeah.
All right. Well, next week I will see you on Tuesday night.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a good night. Sleep
Thank you
well.
so much. Have a good day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye,
God
ma'am.
bless you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Goodbye. God
Bye,
bless.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Nice seeing
Thank
you
you.
again. Bye-bye.